Organic growth is absolutely the best, but it's a little bit slow. Let's talk about something I've only recently started testing more intentionally for my own show: paid podcast growth. Not sponsorships, not ads inside your show, but paying to put your podcast, your trailer, or one specific episode in front of more potential listeners. Welcome to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. I'm Virginia Elder, founder of Podcast Abundance, where we help you use podcasting to market your business, to increase your authority, to get more eyes on your practice, and to capture leads for your business. If you're an investment advisor, tax strategist, business finance sleuth, or wealth management professional who wants your podcast to actually support growth, not just create content, you're in the right place. I made the podcast conversion blueprint just for you. It walks you through exactly how to turn your listeners into clients using a simple framework you can apply right away. The link is in the show notes. Here we go into today's episode. When I talk about podcast growth, I'm focused on the long game. We're talking podcast SEO, strong episode titles, strong show notes, guest relationships, referral partners, YouTube search, even LinkedIn visibility, and especially building a library of episodes that people can discover and digest and explore over time. All of that still matters. In fact, that foundation has to be already established before you do any of what I'm about to share in this episode. So if you've just launched or you hope to, this is an advanced episode. If you're in that phase, this is probably a little bit aspirational and informative so that when you get there, you know what to do. But if you're still working out your messaging, trying to hone your topics, or early in your podcast journey, this is just a really great preview of what you can do once you have that really strong foundation. And you can hang with me because we're going to go through 5 questions you can ask to make sure you have a foundation that is strong and ready for paid podcast ads before you jump into it. Okay, so now if you have been podcasting for, say, 40 or more episodes and you're feeling like really confident about your episode titles, show notes, topics, your production quality is on point, you've got your SEO down, then this episode is going to lead you toward executing a few experiments, gathering data, and testing and trying podcast advertising. It's kind of exciting. So here's the deal. Organic growth is absolutely the best, but it's a little bit slow. Organic growth is something that compounds beautifully when the strategy is strong, but it does not create instant lift. Occasionally, we might see a big spike if we use like the most amazing keyword for your topic, or you just had something that was really seasonal and on point for your listeners, but we're not going to see the spikes typically. If you host a niche show about bookkeeping, taxes, cash flow, retirement, or another very specific financial topic, there comes a point where we can ask a very reasonable question. Should we put a little more money behind it? And this answer might be yes, but only if the show is ready. Paid growth is not going to create clarity for you or your listeners. It will not make a vague show or a vague set of topics suddenly feel relevant to those listeners. It will not turn random episodes into a beautiful business development asset. You're going to use paid ads strategically to put a strong podcast, a strong trailer, a strong episode in front of more people. So to make sure your show is strong and to make sure you're ready before you go ahead and put some more cash behind it in the form of paid ads, I want you to look at these 5 things. First, do you have enough strong episodes for a new listener to explore? If someone clicks through your ad and only finds a few episodes and maybe even the topics of those episodes feel a little bit scattered, if there's no clear promise or no clear reason of why they would stick with that show, paid promotion is not a smart move. For one, that tells me we could do a bang up job together, and I would love to help you with the strategy and production piece. So come on over and let me help you get that foundation right so that you're ready to run paid ads. Because I would rather see you build 10 to 20 really solid episodes before you start purchasing attention. So, the second question is your audience clear? And the caveat to this is that the audience needs to be clear to you as the host, and you know who you're trying to speak to, but it should also be clear to the listener. They should know with conviction that they are the right fit for this show, that the show is basically like created with them in mind. A show for business owners is much harder to promote than a show for practice owners preparing for a sale, widows navigating major financial decisions, or retirees trying to make better decisions around whether they should take Social Security and at which age. So, the more specific the show and the topics and the purpose, the easier it is to decide whether paid ads make sense. The third question: do you have one episode that is truly worth promoting? Not every episode deserves ad spend. If you're going to pay for attention, I want you putting those eyeballs on one of your strongest pieces, a really powerful solo episode, a series that you intentionally created based on a law change or a seasonal event that you see all your clients navigate. Maybe a new trailer once you've rebranded. There has to be a specific reason for promoting a certain episode. All right, fourth question. Is there a next step that's clear that's mentioned both in the episode and in the show notes? Can they download a resource? Can they join your email list? Can they register for a webinar or book a call with you? What is the clear thing that is mentioned in your episode and in your show notes? If there is no next step for listeners, paid promotion might grow your downloads, but you're not going to see any effect on the business side. All right, fifth question is: are you able to treat this as a marketing test rather than a guaranteed return? So, as usual, when we start to run ads for something, there is going to be data gathering and money spent where we are just really seeing, did this work? Do people like this? Am I getting the traction that I expected? And so, when we're spending under $1,000 for a 30-day period of marketing, I would view that paid podcast promotion as you're buying attention, you're gathering signals, and you're determining whether that creates movement. This is not a promise of a certain number of book calls, right? It's a test, it's an experiment. So, when you can say yes to those 5 foundational questions, then we can look at these couple of low cost paid growth options that I think are worth it in some scenarios. So there's a couple that I've tried and then a few that I haven't, but that I'm keeping my eye on. So the first one, and I did this, I'm going to tell you my numbers in a moment. The first one is called Overcast. Overcast is a podcast listening app where you can buy ads by category. I like this one as a simple first test because, for one, it's very affordable. And for two, because you're advertising inside a podcast app to people who already listen to podcasts. So the friction is not there in the ad space because they're already practicing the behavior that you want them to do, which is listening to podcasts. So I tested this recently with this show, Podcasting for Financial Professionals. I spent about $280 for 30 days of advertising in the health and fitness category. Now you might be thinking, like, hold on, this is not a health and fitness show. So what gives? I chose health and fitness because I know that motivated business owners focused on business growth also tend to focus on personal growth, fitness, optimizing their nutrition. They might be running a 5K or a half marathon. My people that I want listening also probably listen to some type of health or fitness show. So, according to my post 30-day advertising report from Overcast, that produced about 1,100 taps to my ad, 63 subscribers. So that comes out to about 25 cents per tap and about $4.44 per subscriber. For my first go at paid podcast advertising, I'm good with that. For one, it was extremely affordable. It was a very small test window, right? 30 days in a specific category. And I got 63 subscribers out of it. Like, that's kind of cool. So, but here's the challenge. We have no idea if those 63 subscribers are actually my ideal listener or my ideal potential client, right? And, like the targeting based on category is still broad. I mean, you can choose from things like business or health and fitness or education or technology. You're not targeting like on Facebook ads where you can literally target like an income range, business owners, interest in tax, anything like that. So it's a broad categorization, and you just get that 63 windows. You're literally just looking for your ratio of taps to subscribers to be decent. And you're just looking for your cost per subscriber to be something within your expected range. So I would use Overcast when the goal is actually podcast audience growth, not direct lead generation. Because again, we have no idea if these 63 subscribers are going to convert into my business. We shall see. They're probably listening. So if you try it, choose a category you think listeners of your show would also listen to. Then, this is super important. The ad that shows your show is teeny tiny because you're inside a podcast app, right? So think about the size of cover art that people are seeing. Your cover art and the show title on that cover art needs to be very clear. So there are some creators that will change their cover art just to make their title much more obvious and bold, just so they can run ads. I ran mine as is with my existing cover art, and these were my numbers. So I'm fairly pleased with that. Other advice around Overcast ads is that I would not advertise in the all category. That's just going to water down your results. And I mean, really, like, is someone in certain categories actually going to click over to a financial show? Probably not. So you want to be really cautious and careful. And then the business space tends to be really saturated and expensive. So I'm not going to advertise in the business category for a long while. at whatever point that I feel like the value is worth it, or I see the price come down or something like that. And by the way, the Overcast costs per category do fluctuate. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to check back into the platform to see when the price is right for you. Okay, the second thing that I have tried and that I do recommend is Audience Lift. Audience Lift caught my attention when they first launched and they were featured in Pod News. And I've definitely seen more from them since then. They promote a custom trailer in contextually relevant articles across premium publishers, and the button directs people for further listening to their podcast app. So the ad is smart enough to, not only be listed in the right places where you probably want people, because they're putting it in contextually relevant articles, important, and then the button directs them to the podcast app. So that's awesome. Then on top of that, on their website, they're listing places like New York Times, ESPN, Forbes, CNN, Insider, Yahoo. I mean, like big players, right? Like who would not want their show advertised in a contextually relevant article on these platforms? I mean, sounds like a hell of a deal, right? So what I did is I recorded a specific trailer just for that campaign. This trailer did not get posted in my podcast feed. You're not going to hear it. I didn't change anything in my show, but I recorded a specific trailer just for that. And for about $500 for 30 days, here's what their report showed: 46,000 impressions, 15,000 trailer plays of that like custom recorded trailer I made, and more than 10,000 episode plays on the episode that happened to air closest to when that ad went live. This taught me something really important because I kind of like didn't know what I was getting into. If I run that campaign again, I'm going to time it really intentionally around an episode that I truly want thousands of people to hear. Probably a strong solo episode, maybe tied to a launch, a webinar, some kind of new resource, or a really timely topic that speaks directly to the listeners that I want more of. Probably something very similar to this episode. So basically, I'm going to make like my best solo episode ever, then create that custom trailer, and then do an audience lift campaign. So if you need help executing something similar for your show, I would love to help guide you around that. So here's how these two platforms showed up very differently for me. Overcast's results of their ad was general subscriber growth. I got 63 new subscribers. I have no idea if they are ideal clients or not, but I've got the numbers, right? Then Audience Lift created specific attention around an episode, the episode that aired closest to when the ad went live. So the timing, the message, and that episode really, really matter when it comes to Audience Lift. So again, I would use these two platforms very differently based on my goals. And it does require a bit of planning, especially for the Audience Lift opportunity for paid ads there. Whereas I could definitely see myself using Overcast to just, throw a couple $100, a month or every 60 days or whatever, just generally building my numbers and trying to strategically pick categories that I think my ideal clients also listen to. All right. The third option here is Buzzsprout ads. This one I have not tried, but I do plan on experimenting with it soon. Now, my first question was that if I don't host my show with Buzzsprout, can I still buy ads there? Yes. Even if your podcast is hosted on Captivate, Podbean, Libsyn, or somewhere else, you can still use Buzzsprout ads as an advertiser. The hosting requirement only matters if you want to accept ads into your own show and you're looking for that monetization piece. As an advertiser, Buzzsprout lets you upload an audio ad and run it across other podcasts. I would consider this a low friction test, especially if you want to promote your show inside other shows. The key to this working is to make sure the match between your show and where it's going to be aired or where your ad's going to be aired is a relevant match. So for a niche financial show, you do not want your ad just like put anywhere. And I would not use a generic ad that says, listen to my podcast. Instead, when you create that audio ad for Buzzsprout ads, you're going to create a very specific scenario that your ideal listener needs help with, and you're going to drive them somewhere very specific. So here's an example. If you're trying to understand whether your business has a cash flow problem or a profit problem, listen to episode 42 of the Power CFO Show. Okay, I totally made that up. I have no idea if there is a Power CFO show or not. And I'm just making that up. Okay. So, but this is really strong because it gives the listener a reason to care right now. Like, do they have a cash flow problem or a profit problem? And we're directing them somewhere specific. Episode 42 of this show. If you want to experiment with Buzzsprout ads, that is an opportunity. If you want, we can experiment together, be like little accountability buddies. I'm down for that. The next platform I'm keeping an eye on is Podroll. And Podroll is built around feed drops. I kind of had to research what the heck that was. So, a feed drop means your episode or your trailer can be placed inside an established podcast feed as a recommendation. So, again, I find this one interesting because it keeps promotion inside the podcast ecosystem. You're not pulling someone away from Instagram with an ad telling them to switch apps and click on my podcast. They're already in the podcast app, and your show would show up in their list of episodes as a recommendation. So I think that's kind of cool. And I could see that producing some really great results. So for this to work well, though, the show where your episode is advertised has to be aligned with your show. So it would be really important that you get to approve or deny the placement of your ad. If the other podcast where they're saying, like, here's some options, here's where we're planning to run your ad, and you're looking through them, if those shows serve a similar or adjacent audience as yours, this could be a really smart way to promote a flagship episode or your trailer. But if you do not see the alignment between your two shows, I'd be really cautious about approving that. Okay, so we can't have a conversation about paid ads without mentioning like LinkedIn ads, YouTube ads, Spotify ads. I mean, these days, every platform is trying to get you to spend money to promote whatever you got. They're showing you the little boost button on your posts, all of that stuff. So, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Spotify, I would use very differently. This is where you are thinking about creating an actual funnel into your business, and you're using your podcast as a resource to support that funnel. So, here's what I mean. If you have an episode about 5 mistakes business owners make before selling their company, you would run an ad that sends people to a landing page. When they click the button, they hop to a landing page where your episode is embedded. The key takeaways and kind of like instructions from that episode are written out on the landing page. And then there's a relevant resource for download on that page, like right underneath it. So, right here on this page, I hope someone's going to click in and listen and spend time just hanging out on my page as they listen to my episode. They're going to read the key takeaways, like spend time on this landing page. And then I'm giving them a related resource that is a free thing that they can sign up for with their name and email. So right there on the page, you have a lead magnet basically that is supported by your podcast. And even that podcast episode is designed intentionally to mention to get that download. So that's not like your standard podcast ad, right? That is an ads funnel using the podcast as a piece of content to nurture the people that click. This is an entire marketing funnel that you just did there. So that's how I would use Spotify ads, LinkedIn ads, YouTube ads, any of those that are not inside either a relevant article, like we talked about with Audience Lift, or inside a podcast app, like with Overcast, Buzzsprout, and Podroll. Okay, let's talk about budget because I do not want you spending money on this unless we have this conversation. So, if you're already paying for podcast production, especially, it can be tough to think, gosh, like now I got to put more money behind my show. I would really like it to like earn money on its own before I spend more money on it. But what happens is then you start creating like a chicken and egg problem where we're just going around and around in circles and like I need the show to grow, but to grow or but to make money then it needs to grow, but I don't want to spend money and you're just going around in circles. So podcast production on its own is a marketing investment. We've heard multiple people mention that on this show, whether they are a CFO or a financial advisor or a business coach or whoever. That marketing investment of podcast production should not consume the entire marketing budget. I mean, that's dangerous. If you have a narrow niche, a really clear service, and the ability to serve people beyond your local market, so we're thinking like, nationwide service or statewide service availability, a really small paid growth test might be completely reasonable. So, for example, I serve clients all over the US and even a few outside the US. So, paid podcast advertising for me is extremely reasonable. But again, we always have to go back to your goals before I'm going to recommend you spending money. What works for me may not be the same story for you. If you choose to spend money in paid podcast ads to grow your show, maybe that's $250 a month. Maybe it's $500 before a launch. Maybe it's $1,000 around a really strategic, powerful series that's going to actually like drive clients into your business. But no matter what you choose, I do not want this to be reckless. The point is to stop expecting a really strategic podcast that we're putting a lot of effort into around like SEO and topics and all of that to just skyrocket organically. That typically does not happen without another strategy behind it, whether that be getting on big stages, whether that be running ads, whether that be you're guesting on another podcast as like a form of marketing for your business and your show. There's lots of things you could do. But if you're not willing to get on stage, you don't have time to guest, various other things could be going on in your business. Couple $100, maybe $500 here or there used very strategically could really compound over time as far as like download numbers, subscriber numbers, and statistically, some of those are going to be ideal clients. So, here's the simplest guidance I can give you on paid podcast advertising. And again, all these options I've given you are under $1,000, typically for a 30-day period of marketing, and definitely something that you can try and test and evaluate. Just explore, see what happens. So here's the advice. If your show is unclear, do not advertise yet. Focus on strengthening the positioning, improve your episode titles, get some SEO guidance. As you're moving forward and creating more episodes, create really intentional, strong solo episodes that establish you as this expert with this unique perspective of how you serve clients. Have a really clear call to action in every episode. And then make sure your show tells people exactly who it's for and why it matters to them. Then, when you've done all that and you've confirmed that your show has a strong foundation, I want you to test one paid channel at a time. That's what I did. I tested Overcast. I waited 30 days in between so that I could really see like 60-day results of my ads. I'm trying to see if those subscribers like stick around and create a consistent up level in my listener numbers. And then I did the same thing with Audience Lift, where I ran that ad, saw my 30 days results, continued not paying for anything else through the 60-day mark. Again, continuing to look and evaluate what that did for my show. So again, using marketing really strategically in this form of paid podcast growth. If you're going for lead generation, I would promote the episode through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Spotify using that marketing funnel that we essentially designed right here on the air. If you want to map that out, let me know. Happy to go back over that with you and give you some guidance around that. If you're focused on creating attention around a certain episode or around a certain period during the year, a certain decision that you're talking about consistently for like a quarter or something, that's where I would consider Audience Lift or Podroll. If you're looking for just general subscriber boost, and again, we don't really know if these are ideal customers or not, but if you just want that subscriber number to go up, I would look at Overcast. And no matter what you're testing, think about your goals and the results that you're expecting and make sure that you're using the right platform to get those results. Taps on your ad are not subscribers. Subscribers are not clients. Downloads are not leads. Each metric tells you something different. Bottom line, paid promotion can tell you whether your topic is interesting, whether your show's packaging is clear and attractive. And you also get feedback on whether people are willing to click in and listen to you for a few minutes versus 40 minutes. But what podcast advertising cannot do is replace the deeper strategy behind your show. You still need episodes that build trust. You still need a clear point of view communicated well. You still need content that answers potential clients' real questions. You still need a clear path from listener to lead. So, should niche financial shows use paid promotion? Maybe. Sometimes. It depends, but only when your show is ready. That's the important piece. Your show has to be ready before you're paying for eyeballs. Paid growth is not going to be the engine. Your strategy is the engine. Paid promotion is the little boost button that you get to hit whenever you're ready. And when that boost is used around the right episode at the right time with the right next steps, it can help more of the right people discover the work you've already built. If you want help thinking through whether your podcast is ready for that kind of growth, download the Podcast Conversion Blueprint. It will help you look at your show more strategically as a business asset rather than just content that you're creating. And it'll really help you clarify that path from listener to lead. That will solve one of the primary foundational steps you need in place in order to get your show ready for a paid growth strategy like what we've talked about today. Thanks so much for listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. If you want your show to do more than just educate, if you want it to generate leads and bring in clients consistently for the long haul, make sure you're using the Podcast Conversion Blueprint. This free download helps you structure your podcast to attract new listeners, refine your messaging to nurture them, and capture those listeners when they're ready as your next best clients. And of course, practicing what I preach when you sign up for your free download of the Podcast Conversion Blueprint, you're going to land on my email list. Hit reply to any newsletter because I'd love to learn about your show or about your ideas for a show. I'll point you toward your next best step, whether that be light support like an audit of your show or becoming a member of the Academy, or maybe you need full service strategy and accountability like what I do inside the Podcast Conversion Lab. Thanks again for listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals. If you enjoyed today's episode, stick around for the next few episodes because each one incrementally helps you improve your podcast.